I am well. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry it took a little bit longer. I was messing with my microphone, technical difficulties and such.
No worries. I was doing some research on the stock market. So,
Oh, how's that going?
well, this is a new venture for me, so I am learning. So I'm watching all the YouTube. What does this stuff mean? Type
Right.
stuff.
I think that's kind of how it is. It's like nobody really thinks about it until you're forced to. And with
Hmm.
everything going on now, everybody's losing their 401ks and everything's getting cut. It's getting crazy.
It is getting crazy. It's definitely something I've always been interested in.
Hmm.
Um, I've always been very money savvy, and my dad's a CFP, so I've always kind of relied on him, right? Like, here's
Hmm.
my 401k, go invest it and just do it for me, right?
Right, right.
So it's always been in the back of my head, like, you know what, you really need to get on this when you're not doing a million things of your own, but you just kind of got to learn. So now's the time, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So how have you been affected by this whole Corona thing? Like, what do you do? I guess like, what do you do for a living outside of fitness?
Yeah, so fitness is totally my hobby. So outside of that, I work in construction.
Okay.
I just recently got promoted I guess a few months back, yeah, 4 or 5 months back, to assistant project manager.
Okay.
Um, so this time is crazy. I am slammed like nobody's business. So a little bit stressful.
So you're slammed with everything, even though this whole thing's going on. What do you attribute that to? Because everybody's as far as like customer service businesses, everyone's kind of closing down.
Yeah, so the company I work for, a general contractor, and we do a lot of schools, which is going to be bond money.
Hmm.
So now that the schools are shut down, it's, hey, let's accelerate these schedules. Let's get this stuff done. We don't know what's going on. Make sure we've got all of our steel bought out. It's go, 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 get everything bought out, and let's run full steam ahead while we've got the time.
That See, that's so amazing because you'll have some businesses and some industries that are just completely like obliterated by this whole
Mhm.
thing. Just that's because that's all you hear. And then you have some like yours who's everything is ramping up. It's doing the opposite. That's so
It's a crazy time, right? Because it's like
right.
I sit back and think about it, because, like, I'm working from home, and that is new.
Hmm.
And I've got kids here, so they're doing school, and so they're
Hmm.
coming to me, asking me help with all this, because they're kids, so they don't really, as good as they are with technology and like playing games on their phones, how to actually navigate a website to submit and upload and do that is all new to them. So
Right.
I'm trying to get down my sense of normalcy here and do all of that. And so sometimes it's a little overwhelming, right? But then I sit back and kind of think of it at night, and it's a very huge blessing too, because there
Hmm.
are so many people out there that don't know how they're going to pay the rent and put food on the table
Sure.
and do all of that. So it's crazy when you sit back and take in the grandness
Yeah.
of all of the events.
Sure, sure. And everything is so, touch and go. You hear like the news, everything kind of it's hard to know what is right because you get so much information that, counteracts the information that you heard just recently. Like for me, like I'll be listening to something and I'll be like, oh, somebody will say, oh, coronavirus is not like as bad as people
Hmm.
say it is. Then you hear
Hmm.
something else and it's like what's a lot worse. Now they found like 7 different strains, and people that are asymptomatic, I heard, that aren't showing symptoms, that are younger, are now having strokes. So it's
That's
all,
crazy.
yeah, so it's all kinds of like stuff that you hear. But with all that being said, congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Uh,
So
try to
how,
see the silver lining and everything, right?
yeah, of course. I mean, you got to like for like in my case, where I'm employed, they had to make some cutbacks, and fortunately, it wasn't me. But I feel terrible, for the people that had to deal with that, because
I
we're
couldn't imagine.
yeah, we're like a highly based upon travel and tourism and things of that nature.
Okay.
So it's
Hmm.
like, so because that's going to be down, they had to make some adjustments.
Sure. Yeah, you have to.
How do you do it? How do you do the whole social distancing when you're doing construction? Like, how does that work?
Well, we all have to wear masks now when we're on site.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for me, majority of my stuff is I can fully function at home.
Right.
And any owners meetings, things like that, we're doing Zoom meetings. But for the field guys, like our superintendents, they all do have to wear the masks at all times and washing hands. We've got more hand washing stations,
Mm-hmm.
and just extra precautions out in the field.
Right. Have you guys had any like issues come up, like anybody infected or tested positive, anything like that?
Well, I actually think that I had it, to be honest with you. It was really crazy. So 2 weeks before all the quarantine hit, I had already kind of self-quarantined. I had this, I'm very healthy all the time, but I started feeling really bad. So the week before I had strep. And then that next following week, this is kind of, you start to hear things of Corona, right?
Sure,
and so I still had this really bad cough, but it hadn't really reached the level where we're at now. So I was out of work for a week, still working from home. And like, I went in that following Monday just because, I felt guilty. Like, I don't want y'all to think I'm taking advantage of a situation here. And they all heard me cough and were like, you need to, like, we get it. Like, under normal circumstances, nobody would even think twice about a cough.
Right.
But with all this going on, why don't you just go ahead and stay home? So I did. And when I went to the doctor, they never officially tested me. But all I can say is I've never had a cough that sounded so gnarly for 3 weeks. And just considering all the timing of everything, I think maybe that's just how my immune system handled it. I never had a fever or anything like that, but the cough was definitely there.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's interesting is that everybody gets different symptoms. So it's not even that you can say, oh, well, these are the exact symptoms that everyone's going to have.
You check these boxes.
Right. Then you have Corona. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Like I said, like I told you a few minutes ago, some people are just asymptomatic. They have it, they don't have any symptoms, So yeah, I mean, it's very possible. It's funny that you mentioned that. My wife was saying the same thing a few weeks before everything kind of hit. She got very, very sick, like, and flu-like symptoms, but tested negative for the flu, for the regular flu. Now she got over it, but she to this day thinks that she had Corona, like, so it's it's possible, because honestly, like, the only way that case 1, ground 0, patient 0 is when they test you. I mean, it could have been before that. You don't, could have been here in the States before that. You don't know,
Right.
No way to tell. So, but anyways, so like, on to more fitness related subjects. So how did you get into like training and fitness and all that in general?
That's actually kind of a funny story. So I guess the beginning of like my whole fitness, because I played softball in high school for like a half a semester, but then I kind of got into the wrong crowd. So kind of grades and sports became less of a thing for me. And then I guess when I got to be an adult, when kind of CrossFit all started, I was I was on a dating website and I went on a date with a guy that owned a CrossFit gym, and I had some girlfriends that were kind of chattering about it. So I was like, all right, well, the date went cool. Let's
try CrossFit.
Let's see what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
So I did, and just the competitive nature brought out the best. I just did really well at it. I loved it. At that time, I was also I worked many jobs. I was a director of a preschool, and I was also a cocktail waitress as well. So I was CrossFitting, doing all that. And one night I was at work and I had a table of bodybuilders, and they said, hey, have you ever thought about competing? And I was like, I don't even know how I'd go about getting involved in that, or the circuit. I have no idea. And yeah, that was kind of the beginning of it.
So at that point, how did you get started? So you saw those guys, and then
I saw them. They were a coach. There was a husband and wife. They were a coach. They said, hey, we'll help you. We'll be your first coach, or we'll be your coach. And I started with them, and that, didn't last very long. I got a rude awakening about how important nutrition is. And, when people aren't feeding you right or as knowledgeable about everything, because
Right.
it can be very dangerous,
Yes, of course.
So from there, I kind of went to the next level coach and the next level coach. And just as the years progressed, got to be with the coach I'm with now, Damien, with Pro Physiques. But yeah, that's how it literally started. Was one night working as a cocktail waitress, had a table that said, hey,
that's pretty awesome. Like just to walk up on somebody like that, and that's kind of how your journey starts.
Yeah, that's kind of my MO. Like when I set myself to do something, I'm like all in, right? Like just
Right.
like this whole like stock market thing. Like, hey, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna start researching this, and I'm gonna do it myself. Let's
Right.
go.
Hey, that's a good way to be, especially in a sport like bodybuilding or fitness, because it's essentially all on you. I mean, you do have coaches, you have people helping you out, but I mean, it's an individual type of sport, for the most part.
Absolutely.
So.
You've got somewhere in there that can give you the framework, but it's all about your execution and also learning for yourself too, right? Because
Sure.
I made the mistake of blindly trusting a coach, and that can be very dangerous. So it's a
Sure.
combination of definitely everything.
Sure. I've had some people on the show that kind of had similar experiences where, the coach pushed a type of protocol or situation that they were just not comfortable with doing. And, and they, for their part and um, to their respect, they decided not to follow through with it. But, I wonder how many people do follow through, because, they're like, well, hey, the coach said it. I mean, I might as well go ahead and do it. And it could really cost you a lot, in that kind of situation. So
it definitely can. I can say it was a lesson I only had to learn one time.
yeah, that's true. That's good. So what division are you in fitness, for people that don't know? Like, what do you compete in?
So I turned pro in figure in 2017 at USA's.
Okay. And is that the division that you're going to stay with, or?
So it's actually kind of crazy. I turned pro in figure, and then I guess it was 6 weeks after that, I went to do my pro debut, and that's when actually I'm in Houston, and that's when Hurricane Harvey hit. So I did my peak week under Hurricane Harvey, and that was insane.
Yeah.
And then after that, going through that whole thing really took a lot out of me. I was kind of done. My hormones then went berserk. Unfortunately, I had to really spend a lot of time healing from that. And I actually kind of switched gears and went into endurance running. So I did like half marathons for, I guess it's been a year and a half now. And so this is actually going to be my return back to the IFBB stage. And I think we're going bikini. So doing a little switcheroo. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you, how do you do that? Like, the reason I say that is because there are ups, like going up and going down between muscular divisions. Like, like you have your physique, and then you have bodybuilding, right? Like they go up and down. Like, how do you do that with the figure and bikini? Because figure is very muscular now, and bikini's, harder than they were before.
More muscular than
it's harder.
It was.
Right. But still not quite like figure.
No. So how do you do that? For me, very strategically. Basically my training and my prep is like nothing I have ever done before. And it's kind of crazy because I'm like, I mean, prep is hard. Don't get me wrong in any form or fashion. It's a lot. But when I was training for figure, to put on the muscle that I needed to have, it was very heavy lifting. Whereas this, now that I've done that and put on the muscle and I'm switching, I'm going down, now it's more of, okay, we're going to work out this body part on these 3 days. So it's just kind of like, and now I'm like, what do I do with my time on the days that I'm like, this is really weird. I feel like, am I feeling guilty for not, like, I feel like I'm not working hard enough, but the game plan's changed, right? So I've got to lose some muscle in places, bring up muscle in other places, and try to kind of streamline everything.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, the divisions have changed a lot. So, you know, I guess I looked at it as, if I were to go back today to compete in the figure division, could I place in a top 5, you know, immediately, right? Not that saying that takes a lot, but let's just say in a hypothetical world. No, I don't think that I could. I don't think that I have the muscle mass that's now required to compete at that level. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I think for me, it was more of a strategic, and then also a personal look for me as well. I didn't want to have that much muscle on my frame. So looking at coming back, looking at the bikini now, I'm like, hey, you know, I think I could, they've got shoulder caps now. And it's, I think if I slimmed some things down and brought some things up, I think I just honestly, I shot my coach a text message and said, hey, got a crazy idea. What do you think? Do you think I could, you know, pull it off in bikini? And he said, you know, shoot me some pics. Let's see. And he said, yeah, I think it's attainable. Here's what, you know, our game plan is. And like everything else, all right, let's rock and roll.
So what do you think as far as like what you need to bring down and up? Like you mentioned that, like, is there something specifically that you're thinking of like what you need to bring down? Particularly, I'm interested in what you need to bring down, because I mean that seems to, I would think that's the primary, you know, issue that you're dealing with.
It's everything. Everything. I literally work out glutes 3 days a week, and that's it.
Okay. So
and then my cardio, obviously
glutes.
I have cardio that goes into it as well, but yeah.
So what about like arms, you know, anything like that, like quads, hamstrings? Does any of that come into play?
So like I'll do like glutes that'll have some hamstrings, not really quads at all. I don't, even when I was competing in the figure division, I never trained arms. For me, it was always shoulders, and quads.
Gotcha.
So now that now I want you none of that. I checked those boxes, got it, and so now it's okay. You've got it. Let's just. I think you have the amount of muscle mass needed. It's just conditioning now, right, and bringing up the glutes and the hamstring tie-in.
Is it easier for you to stay lean? Like, do you usually generally stay lean all year round?
That's a really tough one for me. So before I got into bodybuilding, I got in about 5 years ago. And before that, my body had always maintained a very, you know, I was always 118, didn't matter what year it was. And then obviously, you know, bodybuilding, I put on a lot of weight because I had to go through several bulks. I think I did it over started in 2015. I turned pro in 17. So over 2 years, I went through I pretty much did shows back to back to back. So I put on a lot of weight now, but then retiring, like I said, my hormones got completely out of whack. So it was really, I wasn't lean, and I went through a lot of really hard struggles where, you know, before it was always I'm a very mesomorph type body. So it was always very easy to put on muscle or lose weight. And then when my hormones got out of whack, that was the giant red flag. Cause I was like, okay, I'm eating healthy. I'm eating correctly. I'm reverse dieting. I'm doing my cardio. I'm doing everything. Why is this not reflecting the work after all these months?
Yeah. How did you, so is that how you knew? I was going to ask you that a little earlier. So is that how you knew that your hormones were out of whack, or was there like another reason, or was it what you mentioned? You were eating right, you were training right, and all of a sudden it just wasn't, your body wasn't responding.
Correct. I was very in tune with my body, and it always reacted very, for a lack of a better word, very effortlessly. So when it really became like I was legitimately still putting in the work and kind of felt like pushing even harder because I wasn't seeing the results, and then still not. And then, you know, it got a little crazy. So it was, you know, yes, how my body was responding, but then my energy levels too. You know, I would be driving home from work and like fall asleep behind the wheel. Like, I mean, I'd literally like be driving and be like, whoa, where did those 15 seconds go? This is dangerous. And so that's when it was like, okay, like I slept I put my sleep IQ on. I looked at the app. I got my 7 hours. Like, why am I falling asleep? Something's not right.
Yeah. Was there something, and be as honest as you can, because I mean, I understand there might be some things you don't want to mention, but was there something that you did to help like the hormone bout, or did you just give it time?
No, I went and got my levels tested there's a place out here out in Houston called Surgenics.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and got everything tested, and that's when they came back and said, it was actually kind of crazy, because when everything came back and they read the results, they were like, my testosterone, I basically had no progesterone, no testosterone, no free or total, very, very low. And my estrogen was out of whack, and they were like, this can't be right. For as much muscle as you have on your body, you can't have this level of testosterone. Like, this is, let's retest everything. So they did, and again, results were exactly the same. So that's kind of the route that I took to start healing everything. And then so I did testosterone replacement therapy. I did the pellet. But me personally, I am not a big fan of having to take medications like that. It's just a personal preference. So once I kind of got it all back in line, I just said, hey, you know what? I'm a big believer in God. I said, I'm going to give this to God, and I'm going to go off, kind of how I'm feeling. Obviously, I'm going to keep an eye on it.
Sure.
And glory to God, everything's been fine. I guess I went back a couple of weeks ago and got retested. So I'm going actually tomorrow to get my results to see, to make sure everything's all good now. Yeah.
So you stopped TRT completely, and it still kind of stayed pretty good.
Yes. So I am still taking thyroid medication, but that's the only thing. Everything else, the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, is all right where it needs to be.
Sure. So yeah, I was just thinking while you were saying that, is that how many women I hear, and I mean, men deal with this too sometimes, but mostly I hear a lot with women doing this because they're very vocal, is that how they put in a lot of work and then see very little results. Like, some of that, of course, is, like, are you really putting in the work? But then sometimes they are truly putting in the hard work. They're pushing themselves. They're eating right. And then for some reason, very little to no results. Would you suggest like checking things that are,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have so many women that reached out to me and said, hey, I'm kind of experiencing the same things that you kind of went through. Do you think I should get it checked? 110%. Yes. Go ahead. And because it's a horrible place to be. It's a horrible feeling to know that your body, there's just something not right. I'm big on let's face it. Let's get the answers and then move forward and do what we need to do to get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because otherwise you're just kind of spinning in one place.
Spinning your wheels.
It's no good.
The downward spiral. I mean, because if the harder you work and the less you see it, it can become a very ugly thing to look in the mirror. Yeah.
Sure. And I imagine it can be very depressive, especially when dealing with hormones, because, like that, it's been well documented that like your imbalance in hormones can have an effect on your mental state too. So
it did. Yeah. I was very depressed. I'm a very, very bubbly person.
I can tell by this conversation.
I know.
It's good.
So yeah, when I was just like, I don't even want to get out of bed. Like, that's when I was like, this is the pits. I don't want to feel like this anymore. Like, this is not who I am.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm glad you're better, for sure.
Thank you.
So with you going to Bikini now, and obviously a lot of gyms being closed, I assume the gyms in your area are closed, correct?
Yep.
So have you thought like, oh man, this is great, like that I went to Bikini because I don't have to lift as heavy now? Or is it, or do you still
I learned a lot of lessons from Hurricane Harvey, having to go through a prep and peak week on that. I'm sorry, I kind of started talking before you finished that.
Oh, no, that was question. It. I think you know what I was gonna say. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I learned a lot of lessons from Harvey. Even before then, I was that crazy person that had the treadmill and the bike in their apartment. And so I kind of had some tools at my dispense. And since then, I live with my boyfriend now, and I'm very blessed that, I have a kind of a home gym situation here.
Sure.
But when I went into that marathon running, I actually bought a Peloton. So I had that here. So I'm good on the kind of the cardio checkpoint. And then this past, I guess, Christmas, we invested on one of those, it's called an Inspire. It's like a Smith machine, and like it's got a bench and you can do leg extensions. It's got different attachments.
Gotcha.
So I've kind of got that here. But yeah, no, although I'm not lifting as heavy, it is still very, I have a lot of, like I said, my cardio that I have to do, and am lifting, and that has to be very specific training, right? Like I'm very mind muscle connection and just you're very focused on that. So yeah, so I was not training as heavy and different body parts. It is still very very focused, just like it was back then.
Yeah. So it still can, like, I mean, you have your home gym and you have some things there, so that's helpful, but it's still not quite the same as having, going to the gym, would you say?
Sure. We have an awesome gym when I was going Species, and it's just, I don't know if you've heard about this before, but it is a phenomenal gym. So definitely miss just being able to go in there and the unique pieces of equipment for sure.
Species gym? Is that
Yes.
who handles that? Is it any relation to like Species Nutrition or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So Kyle and Lily they actually have two of them out here, one in Katy and one in Baytown, but it is associated with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So actually, like on this podcast, Species actually sponsors this podcast, Species Nutrition. So
small world.
Yeah. So that's why I was wondering. I was like, but I remember Dave Palumbo mentioning a gym, but I couldn't but it was a while ago, and I couldn't really remember what he said about it. But yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. Do you guys have like a plan or a date when it's going to be reopened? Because here, like, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're already starting, like, okay, in May we're going to like slowly open this stuff, and then later on we're going to open this stuff. Like, you guys have that going on in Houston as well?
I'm kind of actually out of all of that since I, like I said, when I I was going to Species when I was living out in Katy. I'm now moved into the Sugar Land, Sienna, Missouri City area. Okay. So it's really far. Gotcha. So I stay in touch with them via social media and stuff like that. So I do know that, yeah, they're planning, it's kind of starting. I know we are scheduled to kind of start reopening, I believe, today.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not, gyms and all that and things like that are starting to slowly open again. So
what do you think about that? Like, what's your opinion on reopening everything along, with
I'm going to kind of sit back and wait and see. I am not real big into watching the news. I'll be honest with you. It just gets to be so depressing. And like you mentioned earlier, today we're saying this and tomorrow it's that. And everybody's contradicting themselves. I think, people need to be smart, right? Let's still keep up with, good hygiene. And I mean, For me personally, I'm not going to go and, and hug the cashier at HEB or anything. But I'm looking forward to be able to kind of going back to some routine and normalcy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of what everybody is looking forward to. And I think a big move into this direction was probably the economy, which, I mean, I think everyone kind of understands that the economy was trash. So they're trying to revitalize it. I mean, I think it's a good idea. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we won't get another spike of this stuff,
Hopefully, yeah. What do they say in September? It's kind of what they're tentatively thinking this might shoot up again.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's a crazy situation, and it's in New York got hit so bad, and we'll see
I
what
can't even
happens
imagine. Yeah.
there.
So I think every place is going to kind of have to take it, case by case, obviously, depending on the population. And obviously New York is the hub, there's so much international travel, things like that. But me personally, I'm going to use some common sense,
Yeah,
go
it's
out. I'm
probably
not
a good
going to,
idea. Yeah.
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 Imagine that.
Yeah, so are you still doing any kind of like long distance running or anything like that for cardio, or is that counterintuitive for training?
No, I'm actually not doing any type of long distance running at all. I just now, I'll do steady state 5 days a week for, I think, 25 minutes. And then 5 days a week, additionally, I'll do 20 minutes of HIIT. And that's pretty much it, which I look back now and I'm like, thank you, Jesus, for the marathon running. Because when I have 20 minutes, before I had that running experience, I'm like, oh my God, 10 minutes in, like, okay, you're halfway through, just keep, five more minutes. Now I have the perspective of, oh, I've run for hours. This is a tool in my toolbox. This is pretty cool. It's not as mentally straining as it was.
Sure. I mean, people underestimate like the major cardio type of workouts, like long distance running. I mean, that stuff is so good for you. It's so good. Not only are you burning a ton of calories and all that and body fat, but I mean, just the heart conditioning that you're going
the
through
endurance.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Endurance is amazing. We're gonna so we have our 10-year anniversary tomorrow, and we decided that on Saturday we're just gonna go, like, since we can't really go anywhere, we're gonna go hike. And that's one of the only places one of the only things you can do, because there's nobody there, it's just in the woods.
That's awesome.
We're going to do this 10-mile hike. Hopefully, like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Pack some carbs and plenty of water and hit the trails. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I'll be posting some videos. I'm taking my GoPro with me. Should be exciting. So
sweet. Okay, I'll have to stay tuned.
Yeah, for sure. So at this point, you're going bikini. What, like, do you have a show in mind? I know everything's been postponed. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So my original game plan was the Optimum Classic in Louisiana. And that was actually supposed to be on May 23rd, which was great for me. Obviously, I can drive to that. It was actually 2 days before my 35th birthday. So I was like, sweet. All right, I'll be off of prep for the birthday. And okay, 35, you're getting back into it. All right.
Nice.
So now I'm looking at Dallas, Europa, June 20th. So fingers crossed at that.
Have they officially canceled the May show, the Optimum? Like, have they?
Yes, that one was postponed until August now.
Okay. And the Dallas one, they have not.
They had not ever canceled it. And like I said, here in Texas, we start opening up, I believe, today or tomorrow. So I'm really hoping that this one sticks.
Yeah. Are you gonna just do like one show and then that's it? Or it depends on where you place? Are you gonna try to hit a few shows as you go?
I'm going to go and see how it goes. It's going to be totally dependent on the feedback that we receive. If it's, we go and, okay, you just need a little more conditioning, cool. Okay, let's keep on going. But if we go and it's, you really need to build up your glutes a whole lot more, well, then obviously building that muscle takes time. So then it's, okay, let's focus on the game map plan and come up with a plan and execute it. So it's going to be totally dependent on what the feedback is. We'll see.
Right. What do you think about we touched on it a little earlier. What do you think about everybody getting more muscular? All the divisions getting more and really men and women, not just women, but
I can't speak for how everyone else may feel about it. Again, for me, it's just a personal decision about how I want to look. I want to go look a certain way. I want to compete and see kind of how I move, how I go, how I fit in. I think for, maybe new people coming into the sport, and then especially if you're going to try to take it somewhere and go on and compete on a national level and then on a pro level, it's definitely something to be considered, because, it is a lot of time to build the type of muscle that you're going to have to compete against on that stage. So it may be a little bit more intimidating for new people, or, people like me that are returning, like, okay, it's been a couple of years and this is whew, I didn't think I lost that much muscle, but y'all are really kind of making me question myself now. I
Well,
want to
see,
go kind of compete this year, but if I want to compete in that division, I may need to take a couple more years and build.
yeah, I was talking to, and now I can't, it's slipping my mind who it was, but I had a podcast earlier on, closer to the inception of this show, and we were talking about Ashley Caldwater and how she was, winning everything before she left. She left, came back, and now she's, doing much worse. Not terrible, but nowhere near what she was
Changed a lot,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's actually,
Divisions
we're
changed.
both sponsored by the same company, High Tech Pharmaceuticals. So yeah, I am very familiar with her. But yeah, it is a reality check that you have to kind of, okay, this is changed a
Yeah.
whole lot.
Yeah, and by no means is she doing terrible, but she's definitely like dropped because and you can tell, and if you compare her to the where she was when she left, she looks pretty much the same. So it's not that she looks worse; it's just the division is
The
kind of like,
progression of of
yeah,
the sport. Yeah.
yeah. It's tough. It's tough, especially if you were a champion before, like not to be up there again battling it out. So
This
yeah.
sport is ruthless. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is. You've got to bring, I mean, if you, you take a step back, and I think that that's necessary too. I think that I think that was part of the reason I experienced some of my hormone issues is, like I said, I went back to back to back to back shows, and that, you can pay a price for that too.
Sure.
So, it's, you gotta kind of go in with both eyes wide open of,
Yeah.
keeping your health in check. And also, hey, if you really want to compete at that level,
Right.
you got to keep up too.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. That's a tough balance to keep, but some people are able to do it. So I guess it's possible, right?
It is. Yeah. I mean, everything costs a price. So how
Right.
much are you willing to pay? And
Yeah.
then again, like I said, I can only speak for myself, but for me, when I was on that grind to turn pro, didn't matter. I wasn't thinking about my hormones. I wasn't
Sure.
thinking about all things. I was so focused and just, just laser like focus on turning pro, and I did, and that's fantastic. I'm so proud to be able to say that I accomplished that. But like I was saying earlier, I paid a price for it.
Right. Well, you're better now. So now
You learn a lesson, right?
Yeah,
you learn the lesson, and that's where now I've balanced out, right? That's where I'm like, okay, before I may have just, I'm going to go in and go into bikini, and I'm just going to hit it. And where now it's like, okay, what? I've grown. I've got a little bit more wisdom here. Let's just take it as this show and see where it goes from there.
So just to kind of, wrap up the show. So the goal, all things, being suspended in this type of scenario, best case scenario, what happens? You go in, you win a show, you go to Olympia, and then
that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you get that in writing?
Yeah. So that's the goal. The goal is just, like to ideally pick the right show, win it, and then go to the Olympia.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love nothing more than for that to happen. That was obviously, the goal when I was in figure to get to Olympia. I want to compete at that level. Absolutely.
How long do you think, in every sport, everybody's kind of has to call it quits at a certain point. Age obviously comes into play, not that you're anywhere near that, but bodybuilding, they tend to be, people tend to compete a little longer than like more contact sports and things of that nature. What do you think, like, how long do you think you'll be competing? Do you have a like an age in mind where you're like, okay, by this point,
until it doesn't bring me joy anymore?
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Until I'm gonna go until the wheels fall off, or until I just don't get that same fire. I'm all about chasing dreams that make you happy.
Sure. Yeah. And that's kind of where it's at. I guess that's kind of your, what you put out there for other people as well. Like, just do it. It makes you happy. But
Take the leap, do the scary thing. If it gives you those butterflies and you are into it and jazzed about it, man, do it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Word from the wise. Hey,
There you go.
if somebody wants to contact you for anything like training, nutrition, just go ahead and like take a few seconds, plug in like how they can do that, or any sponsors or anything like that. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. If anyone wants to reach out to me, you can always go on. I'm very active on Instagram. It's jgrace05. And as far as like, yeah, all my sponsors, I'm very, very grateful for High Tech Pharmaceuticals. They have been with me from day one, 5 years ago. And, even when I took a break and then came back, they were like, let's rock and roll. So I use all of 100% high tech, and I'm very thankful for them. So any questions about any of that kind of stuff too, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jan, so much for your time. I'm happy that you're back, and I wish you all the best. Okay.
Thank you so much. I really
Okay.
appreciate
Thank
the
you.
opportunity. It was great talking with you.
No problem. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.